Pete Cheratovic, owner of Old City Press, which is a letterpress design and invitation studio in the heart of Old Town Alexandria. And today we're going to talk about letterpress. We're going to talk about the letterpress process and what we do from the beginning to the end. A lot of couples come to us to get their invitations done. A lot of couples come help us print on one of our letterpress Vandercooks. And the big question is always, what is letterpress? How does it work? And what are the costs associated with it? So today I thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of go through the entire process from the beginning to the end. So for this purpose today, what we're going to do is we're going to create, we're going to recreate this. This is just a pre-design of Old Town Alexandria, which we do. And I'll have some pictures up close for this so you can see them up close. But we're going to kind of go through the process and recreate this letterpress print on there. And we're for this purpose, we're using 220 crane paper, which is pearl. So the first thing we do is we create a design, whether it be in Illustrator, Photoshop. We either create them ourselves. Sometimes we have designers create them. Sometimes folks bring their own designs in, or sometimes they come with us and they kind of help us create them themselves. It depends on what level you want to work with us on that. And then when we have the designs in Illustrator, we turn it into a digital negative, and then we finally make this letterpress plate, which we do here. It's a polymer plate. It's a K95. It's a very hard material, and I'll have a picture of this up close too so you can see it. But what it does basically is allows the rollers to ink onto the plate for whatever color we lay down, and then this puts depression into the paper. So for the purpose today, we're going to use our Vandercook number 4. This machine's from 1955. So we have this one, which is a 1955 Vandercook number 4. We have this one over here, which it has our Old City Press logo on it, which is a SP15. It's from like 1961. And then over here we have another Vandercook number 4, which is 1954. So primarily any letterpress printing that we're doing today, or any kind of letterpress printer primarily today, is using one of these 3 machines. There's also a CP press, and there's a Heidelberg and some other stuff too, but these are valuable machines in the sense that you can do multiple colors, multiple registrations, and it makes the process fairly quickly, and it's fun. So, okay, so for the purposes today, and I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this, but what we have is, so we have the plate, we have a base here, and this base is a Boxcar Base. It actually has a grid line on it, on the base here, which allows us to take your design when you do multiple colors and line it up here and get this kind of straight, right? So, you know, you can't see here obviously, but on here there are little marks, right? These marks are registration marks. And one of 2 things, these are gonna allow us to cut the invitations correctly, right? Make them straight. And it's also gonna allow us to line them up on this base, so whenever we feed the paper through, it is straight, right? So it's just a quick way to do it. So the first thing we do is take the tape off the back, or the sticky. This is just a blue sticky, and this here is actually tape. So this just keeps us good. So we'll set this to the side. And for this purpose, on this invitation, we're actually doing 2 colors. So on this one here, you can see there's like a gray and there's a green, right? So you actually have to have 2 plates for this process. So we will actually go through that. So this one here is just the bottom half on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up on here real quickly. All right. So that's stuck down on there real nicely, and we'll get some pictures of this too to show you. The way this machine works, it has 2 rollers and then 3 cylinders, right? So we're just going to take the ink and we're going to put the ink on the cylinders, turn it on, pull this lever down, and we're going to spend like a minute or so to let it mix up. So today what we're going to use for these purposes is we're using rubber-based ink, which is transparent, and I have my little handy-dandy ink knife here. And our color we're using is slate, which has a slight blue tint to it. And you can use any color. I mean, we do, I think on staff here we have 70 mixed colors, and we have about 6 neon colors that we use. And then beyond that, we can hand mix. I have the base inks, so I can hand mix about 1,400 different colors, which is super fun. And a lot of couples, when they come help us print, they like to help us. They like to mix the hand make. They like to test it. Mixing ink is kind of an art form in itself, right? You can have this whole long tutorial on how to do that. So a lot of couples want to try to mix it, and they recognize how hard it is, but it's kind of fun to watch them turn something which should be red into like brown, right? So it's pretty fun. All right, so the machine here itself, I'm just gonna turn this on, and has the cylinders moving, and I'm gonna push this down here, this lever down here, and you can see it mixing up here. And we'll just give that a minute or so and let it mix up. Letterpress printing is pretty fun. We do a lot of different sizes. We can do, this machine itself will do about 14.5 inches wide by 25 inches, so it's a pretty big poster size. We do a fair amount of posters for folks, but I'm always trying to get somebody to do like a letterpress poster as an invitation. I think that would just be like the most amazing thing ever. Alright, I'm gonna let this mix up. And what we're trying to get here is even disbursement. So the reason why it's mixing, you can see the top cylinders moving back and forth like this. What it's really doing is you put the ink on here and it's actually shifting across these rubber rollers. And what it'll do over a couple minutes here is it gives a very even disbursement. Not every Vandercook is auto inking. In auto inking, all it is that you turn it on and it starts spinning itself. Not every Vandercook does that. The ones we have do. And the reason why we love it is that it allows to get very even inking across the first invitation and 100th invitation. If you didn't have auto inking, what you'd have to do is about every 10, you'd have to check the color, the consistency, to make sure one side wasn't darker than another. There's a lot of reasons why this is very valuable. They don't make Vandercooks anymore either. The machines from the mid-50s, the last ones from the early 60s. The Vandercooks themselves phased out in the mid-60s or so when offset printing became out. So these are kind of relics in that sense. There's only, on average, probably 2,000 of these left in the United States. The number 4, the ST15, is probably 3,000 overall, which sounds like a lot, but when you really think about how many printers there are, it's really not that many. Alright, so what we're going to do is we are going to run this machine over top of this ink. You can see me do that, and you can see on the base here, and I'll get a picture of this up close too. You'll be able to see on the base here about how the ink disperses on that. So I'm not sure if you can get this thing on. But the process is again, and you can see what happened was we put the ink on here, and now the ink is on the base, on the plate. I'm not sure, can you see that close? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can see that up close on there, right? Now what we do is we're putting it in print, and I'm using 185-pound cotton paper for this. And what we're going to do is make sure we have it lined up correctly, and I think we can move it over some. Alright. Let's put in print. These grippers lock it down into place, which keeps everything even. And we can roll it through. And you can see here, can you see that? How it prints on there? Mm-hmm. So it takes the design, and you can see like the designs we create and the digital negatives we make and the plates we make from here can carry a lot of really, really good detail. And the reason why we can do that is because we have the plate maker, so we're able to like test a lot of things out. Making these plates for letterpress is actually pretty expensive, right? So even an invitation side, so if you're making an invitation, if you're working an invitation designer that is buying the plates to make this, just for a 5x7 invitation, I mean, they're probably paying $70 for it just to make it. Since we make everything here, it allows us to kind of push the boundaries and test things a little bit overall, because since we own the equipment, it's a lot less expensive. So that's just reality to it. So okay, I'm gonna run a couple of these through so we can test this out. All right. This actual design is a picture we took from the waterfront in Old Town Alexandria of the townhouses down there, which if you're not from Alexandria, it's pretty historic. It's right by the Pita Factory. It's kind of where George Washington kind of lived, and then Robert E. Lee lived in the area. But if you're from here, you recognize how awesome it is, and how spectacular the view actually is. All right. So what we'll do now is we are going to actually take this to the other machine, and we're going to add a second color for the actual names, and we'll get through that process. So you can pause it at any time now. All right, and we're back. So what we did was we just paused the camera, and then we took up this plate here for the first color, which we will show you on this one. And then what we did was we put down a second color plate, which was just the names and some more details about the invitation overall. So I actually already put that on the grid line here on the base. And then for this one, we are going to use coral. It's just a reddish color. So what I will do is lift this up, use my handy dandy ink knife again, and we're going to put it right on the cylinders here. Now when you're doing like multiple invitations, like say we're doing like 100, 150, or if you have a lot of friends, 400, what we would do is we check the ink consistency while we're printing about every 20 or so. We're going to make sure the first one looks just as good as the last one. Alright, so we're going to send that around there. We'll let that mix up a little bit. A little more ink here. Put a little bit more ink on there. Sometimes whenever it starts to make that noise, it's just because you need a little bit more. Alright. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll put like a red and then like a blue, and it gives like this mixed color and looks like a color roll on it. It's pretty cool too. And the inks are transparent, which means that if you lay down like a blue ink and then a yellow ink on top, you would essentially have green where they touched. Which is an easy way to get like a 3-color mix on there without not actually using 3 colors. Alright, put the lid back on this. To the side. It looks like it's just about mixed up, so I'm going to put in Trip. And then we'll roll it over. What I'm doing now is just getting some ink actually on the actual plate there with the names on it. So what you'll see now is now we're ready to go. Put it in Trip. See on this one here now, and I'll take a picture to show you up close, but you can see on here the names. The name's in a coral, the rest of the design is in a slate, which is a grayish blue, and we use these lines here, which line it up, and I did a pretty good job of lining it the first time. Sometimes that's the hardest part, is to get the exact line up from the one color of a plate to another color of a plate, but I would like to think that I got pretty lucky that time, because it looks pretty good on there. Now what we do is we measure it out, make sure everything was exactly right, and we'd cut one down, and then we'd be ready to print the second half of this invitation. So what I'll do is I'll just print out a couple more here. Turn the machine off, and you can see the final product here. These are just 2 colors. We want to show you the contrast to them. I'm not sure if this is exactly what you'd pick for an invitation, but you can see the 2 different plates and how the process works. And that's basically it in a nutshell. So if we were doing 50 of them or 100 of them, we had to run each one through. We check the consistency. And then when it's finally done, we use these same crop lines to actually cut this. So you can understand the process where if we had one color versus two colors versus three color letterpress invitation, the time it could actually take to do that and to cut them down. And that's really where the kind of cost and the time. And the paper itself is rather expensive for cotton paper. It's synthetic cotton paper, and allows them to give that kind of big, deep impression on there. So that's it. Well, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, please let me know.